riff with? What are we opening the riff with? We talking about your
brand new cell phone.
Your Huawei.
Well, I wanted to say how Old Town Road, like,
Is it your new ringtone?
no, our podcast is like the Old Town Road of podcasts.
Uh huh.
Elaborate. I don't.
Well,
buy
because how country and rap are taught to hate each other, but are the same. We're anarchists and communists brought together,
Yeah.
learning to love each other
Uh-huh.
for the people.
and we're gonna top the Billboard charts.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. I can buy that.
A dibs rap.
Well, I was wondering which one is which. I kind of wanted to be rap, but you know.
No, communism is definitely country music. It's way too established.
And anarchism isn't what?
No, anarchism is like cool. that's my central
okay.
thesis. Deal with it. Yeah.
I don't buy it. Communism is drill.
Yep.
We've been engaging with a lot of. I've been a big YouTube hole of Irish rap music and
And I appreciate
Americans
reacting.
American rap fans reacting to Irish rap. That was particularly good because Irish rap ranges between like very good serious stuff done by like our black and immigrant populations that's really cool and really good shit, and then there's this like jokey stuff everyone can get, like the Rubber Bandits, and then jokey stuff no one but a few Irish people will get, like Versatile. So
Like the video that you just showed us.
yeah.
Yeah, I was genuinely confused. For 7.5 minutes.
7.5 minutes.
That was an Ireland tourism video where they tell you what a normal day in Ireland is like. You do a bunch
Pretty
of
much,
drugs,
actually,
and then
yeah.
you go hike up a hill in the snow.
I mean, to be
with your
fair,
friends.
like I don't want to go to Ireland now. So.
You don't want to sit down in an Eddie Rockets, an American style diner, and have someone shout cunt at you.
No, I'm good, and I don't want to just end up in someone's apartment
doing
ketamine, having some guy speak at me for like 8 hours on end.
Yeah, about how his brothers are in the IRA.
Yeah, no, I'm not about that.
Yo, my fucking cousin, he was in the IRA.
Yo, he could have made it though.
No shit, my cousin killed like 10 British soldiers.
He was ready to go pro. At his last game, there was a scout there, but he blew it because he drank 12 Guinnesses the night before. No shit. My cousin, like, he beat the shit out of Conor McGregor, the little pussy, before he was big, you know? My cousin slept with Saoirse Ronan. You have to realize this is a normal conversation in Ireland because the country's so fucking small. And it's probably true. She has to have slept with someone.
Remember how I said I'm not coming to Ireland?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still. That has not changed.
Well, the other thing I wanted to say is how happy I am to have a new phone. Mostly because my old phone was really bad, and so any phone would be an improvement. But I've also embraced.
This is a fact.
Your
old phone was an absolute piece of shit.
But now I'm supporting Chinese socialism,
Good.
so I'm happy with my new phone.
So we have 3/4 of the podcast are avid supporters of socialism with Chinese characteristics.
I mean, my phone was made in China.
Yeah, but yours is still supporting imperialist propaganda. That is Apple.
No, iPhone, like me having an iPhone means I support Assad because Steve Jobs is a Syrian. I made a connection. I'm happy with it.
Apple is actually a third worldist company.
Well, President Xi was actually told me he heard the episode we did about Marx, and he said Ciarán is getting too close to the truth, and so he sent me a free Huawei phone to spy on Ciarán because he's like too dangerous in critiquing the Chinese state.
I mean, I support his decision.
So we're triangulating Ciarán's voice perfectly between my phone and yours.
Yeah, and my computer.
Yeah.
I like this
You're
idea.
surrounded.
Yeah.
I like this idea of just like we found this dissident in the West and we must stop him. Therefore, I've sent one of his mates like a hoverboard. Rob just rolls up on a hoverboard like, "Hey, what's up, guys? Ciarán, could you speak louder into the hoverboard?" Welcome to your corner, Späti, on this wondrous of Greek Easters.
Orthodox Easter. We have to be accepting of all 20 whatever.
Well, that's what
Ciarán's
the word
first-
Orthodox means. There's like 20 versions of something.
First hot take of the podcast: fuck Romanians. I'm all about Greek Easter. Yeah, and welcome to the corner, Späti. I'm Ciarán. I'm here with beautiful, beautiful boys, Nick and Rob.
Hi.
Hello.
Nick cooked us delicious food, and now we're all kind of sleepy.
Yeah, it was worth it though.
It was, yeah.
I mean, I was like podcast yeah, and I like started cooking last night, and I woke up at 8 o'clock in the morning to continue cooking for you guys.
Can we use this as like the episode we pitched to potential guests, being like, "Yeah, we'll cook some amazing."
We'll cook food for you.
Yeah,
I'll cook food for you. Rob and Ciarán will come over and eat it. Yulia will come over and eat it and then fall asleep.
I was hoping she'd be on the pod today. That's fine.
No, she literally ate and then fell asleep.
And we're talking about a choice selection of two things. First thing, it's election season. We've all got that.
Again, it's election season.
It's forever election season. We've all got that election buzz, mainly because of a fucking bunch of posters around town. The election has come home to us here in Berlin.
Yeah, so if you don't live in Berlin, maybe you don't know that it's been pretty beautiful weather for the past week or so. And so everyone's been walking around
Today's pretty
outside.
shit, though.
What's that?
Today's pretty shit, though.
Yeah, it was
Yeah, it's a little
bullshit
cold.
today.
Yeah.
It's very topical podcast material. Fuck the.
Yeah.
I'm all right in a sweater though.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Anyway, there've been in Germany, I guess the system is similar throughout Europe, but 7 weeks before the election, is it? 7 weeks before the election, the parties can put up their posters around town. And it's a little bit of you hear Peggy Noonan or people in the U.S. talk about the lawn sign primary. Who has the most lawn sign wins.
It's not the case here.
It's completely different, but it does
You
give you a
fuckers have
little.
lawns.
It's a little bit of an insight into the politics, especially of your neighborhood. You can learn like, wow, I'm surrounded by FDP voters. Didn't know that.
I don't think that that's true though, because
yeah, I think FDP definitely puts it in different areas. But for example, where I used to work in Hamburg, it was all CDU and FDP. That was it. There were no other signs.
Do you live in Moabit?
No, in Hamburg.
Oh, okay.
The Moabit.
Yeah, it was. I think. Yeah, they were just.
Yeah, so like I'm not sure if that whole regionalism thing works true for the European elections, because like the catchment areas are so fucking broad. Like that's definitely true of like a German or a German state election, because they're just like, we're not going to put AfD posters in like, well maybe they do, but like Neukölln or something like that. Is that?
Oh, they're everywhere here.
Oh, okay, but like there's got to be areas of Berlin where like AfD posters are just a fucking waste of money.
Well, the AfD posters are everywhere because I think the AfD is one of the best financed parties in Germany.
Right.
As has come out recently, that they got a bunch of like weird financing from this billionaire in Switzerland.
What's the guy's name? August de Fink or someone else?
Yeah, some shit like that. Fucking
really German ass name.
Yeah, I don't know. Racist von Hitler.
I think you racist,
It's one of the
and I like you a lot.
Yeah. And so, yeah. So the AfD has like different posters that they do though in different areas. So in Neukölln they have very tame ones that are like, it's just like what's his name? Is it Jörg Meuthen, the guy? I don't know, some fucking dipshit old white guy, and it's just him like looking, beautifully into the sunset and saying like future.
Imagine a world without Muslims.
No, it's just like like take me to Europe or something. I don't know. Fucking just,
where was he before?
yeah, like I don't know. It's just these very like uninspired posters in Neukölln.
Yeah,
but then when you end up in like an area that isn't Neukölln, particularly not even in Berlin, their posters are fucking insane. They'll just be a picture of a mosque, and then it says, "Don't let your." I think it was Rostock actually had these.
Oh,
it
good.
said, "Don't let Rostock become like Neukölln."
Which we're definitely campaigning in as well. But, you know.
Yeah, so it was like, because I was wondering, like, why are the AFD posters not that crazy this time around? They're just kind of like, save Diesel and, you know.
I fucking love the Save Diesel platform. What fucking, like, who sees Save Diesel and goes, yeah. Do you know what? I was going to vote CDU, but Save Diesel.
Should we go through the parties we've seen, our favorite posters?
I already told
our
you my
least favorite
favorite. It was the
posters.
one that wasn't even here, so.
Can I bring up one, because first of all, I don't understand any of the German on it, but it's the CDU one, which I think is meant to appeal. Like, they're doing big banners for this one, like on the side of the road, not like the tiny ones they put on lampposts, but like it's obviously to appeal to like the blue collar worker of Germany or whatever. But it's that lad who's like bowing in front of a machine, I think
Wait, what?
I haven't seen
Yeah,
that.
I think he's meant to be like working on it or something. He's like working with or on a machine, but all from a distance, it's just like he's bowing like a
The Supreme Overlord.
Yeah, like I was like, what does this mean? Does this just mean like, hey, let's just give up and let the machines take over? CDU.
I mean, I understand it as that.
I mean, yeah, sure.
I'm trying to think of like other weird. There's always just like parties that then exist that I don't realize that exist.
Yeah, this is the fucking meat and potatoes of this topic. These fucking buck wild parties that I've never heard of before.
Yeah, like the what is it? The UDP.
Yes.
The Environmental Democratic Party or whatever.
Yeah,
it is.
the ecological democratic.
Ecological. Thank you.
Yeah, they're
They're fucking stupid.
yeah, green conservatism
If
party.
the Green Party wasn't right wing enough for you, already.
Yeah. Have you considered? Well, it's weird branding, because at the same time I'm like, okay, I get it. There's a finite number of colors on the spectrum that we can take to represent our party's branding.
What other colors again? Like orange.
Orange. But if you're going to be a green party, would you not just take green again, like a different shade of green?
Different shade. Yeah.
Like, this is just so confusing. I was so surprised when I had to finally fucking Google them. It was like, ecological why are you what is this?
And the funniest thing on their posters is that it'll just show like at the bottom, like, just help us get to the threshold.
For
Like
the
they
love of
only want
God.
that, like, what is it, 5% or whatever it is?
Yeah, yeah.
Let's get those hearts going.
Yeah, literally.
Let's see some UDPs in the comments. Yeah, like, I have no fucking clue. I guess they just really believe in themselves. They were like, if we get one MEP, we'll fucking blow up. We'll go viral. All right.
All you need is one MEP. You need one song,
Yeah.
one tweet to blow up. You need one MEP.
One chance, one opportunity.
Oh, I saw a bunch of Volt posters, by the way.
Yeah,
Volt is everywhere.
Oh,
Volt's
speaking
in town.
of you know, you got one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow.
Fucking nerds
Fucking
are here.
Volt.
The fucking nerds.
Can you explain Volt for the people, somebody?
Yeah, I mean, I've explained it before, but the most succinct way of putting it is, it started in Italy. They're trying to be like the first pan-European party, even though like DiEM25 is older than them, but DiEM25 has like a slightly different electoral strat. But the best way to summarize them is, what if Macron, but everywhere? Because they popped up when the like Macron moment was happening, before everyone realized he was fucking terrible. I mean, a lot of people still stand for him real hard, but I think more people have come around to the idea that he's fucking terrible.
Yasha Munk, come on the pod.
Defend your man. But yeah, they have absolutely no policy positions. They had like a weird like GoFundMe where the average donation was like €200. Yeah, they're not going to accomplish anything, and I'm going to laugh at them on Twitter. I've started so many Twitter beefs with them from like senior members of this party.
He may be completely incompetent. He may be have a 15% approval rating. There may be a slight chance that he's killed by a guillotine within a year, but he is still my man.
Sometimes Volt wins. No, it doesn't. Yasha, it's not gonna. I'd be so fucking. I've already stated, I think, on my other podcast that, but I'm going to be on fucking suicide watch if they get a single seat. Like, I don't understand.
I completely forgot that they existed until I was in Prenzlauer Berg last week.
That's what I mean.
Oh,
The
that's,
neighborhoods tell you what kind of signs are
Yeah.
there. If I see
Yeah,
a Volt
I mean,
sign, I'm like,
I think
why
that-
am I here?
Yeah, I think that in that
Gentrified
case,
shithole.
for newer parties, that is like probably pretty true. And during the local German elections, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
because but local elections and national elections, because in Neukölln comes up like all the very weird like Turkish parties that will sure as hell never win a seat, but it's just like, yeah, I don't know, it's just something that then you'll only see obviously in this area,
But
because they're campaigning for the seat for Neukölln.
I think you're right that Volt is trying to play the neighborhoods game in Berlin, but that's probably because they're so fucking inexperienced they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Because you're right, they're in Prenzlau.
Talking about their king won. He won from a country that had one of like the lowest turnouts in their history.
Ugh. But anyway, Volt, their posters are in Prenzlauer Berg, which is news to me, but the area I've been seeing them in is like properly capitalist Mitte, like Potsdamer Platz.
True, yeah, there too.
Prenzlauer Berg is just the extension of that now.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure, yes.
And they're just a lovely purple color.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. So, and I think in the European election, in the Europawahl, it's not as, there are kind of like people kind of, the parties maybe branch out a little bit. They get a little like frisky. They're like, "Ooh, let's put some signs over here and over here." Like it's more spread out.
We can get some,
I think the FDP does that a lot. They're like,
the FDP has them everywhere
because they're sort of logic geniuses who think they can convince everybody.
They're what's it called? Like the
campaign manager. Like
campaign manager.
Yeah.
Like has to be like just fucking stupid.
You mean you aren't convinced by a party that all their ads look like sunglasses ads?
No. And
they look really happy. They're like standing there smiling like, yeah.
There's the one, like, first off, their color scheme is atrocious.
The yellow and purple one.
Yellow, purple, and light blue.
Yeah.
And pink.
Ugh.
And
there's a lot going on there.
There's
also, you could be describing what I'm wearing.
No, you're just wearing pink.
Woo!
And purple.
A little bit purple, yeah. Go on.
But yeah, they just have like these people in these very awkward poses.
What's that one woman who's mid-straight?
Exactly,
like,
that's what I mean. It's just like a sunglasses ad. They're like, it's like what I would see, I don't know, at Ace and Tate for the new.
Yeah. It's like trying to make neoliberalism fashionable again.
Speaking of which, of fashionable and again, did you see their online ads where they're making "Make Europe Great Again" hats?
Like, not ironically either.
Not ironically. No.
Oh, God, this fucking party is the worst.
They're terrible.
I know that like the AFD is like actually racist and like maybe a potential neo-Nazi party.
The fucking whole point of like the whole sticking issue for them in the last like what stopped the Jamaica coalition was them being like, "Now we want tighter border control. We'd like more brown people to drown the Mediterranean, please. Hi, we're the sensible center party."
Through the FDP?
Yeah.
They also were throwing a fit that they wouldn't get the Ministry of Economy.
I mean, fuck, the CDU is never going to give that up.
No.
Right?
But they were mad about like that, about borders, taxation, and the Ministry of the Economy. Which are, yeah.
This is such a shit party.
Like, but even the idea of them, this like, these like classical liberal
to be
party.
fair, the Jamaica coalition would have been much worse than what we have currently. I mean, like, I would rather like deal with
rather than the GroKo.
Yeah, that like because then you have just like three insane right wing parties. To be fair.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the Greens kind of at least stood their ground a little bit on that whole like, because the whole reason that didn't work was because the Greens didn't want the tighter border thing. Yeah, and that was the sticking point, because the CDU probably would have got along with that, and they were probably looking for an excuse to get the like, our hands are tied kind of thing.
Christian Lindner, he's just too smart. He's too good of a negotiator. We just have to do what he says.
Just the back alleys.
Christian Lindner, who I said before, like if just like a slight bit of fate from just being Stefan Molyneux, like that
for the grace of God
yeah,
goes
exactly. Christian Lindner and Stefan Molyneux are the same person, just in different circumstances. And Christian Lindner, because he somehow is politically relevant in this dumbass country and continent, that like he has to pretend that he's like not the same.
There's not a dumber person in parliament than him.
No.
And
have you listened to his podcast?
The AFD. What?
Have you listened to his podcast?
Yes, I have.
This is such news to me. Why is this a thing? Why do they? Oh fuck! I really like the idea though of Christian Lindner like in the back alleys, the Bundestag, being like, "I hear you step to me," and flicks at a knife. Christian Lindner's bullying us. Oh god damn it. Do we want to talk about the other fucking weird ass obscure parties that have shown up? That like, well, the pirate party is out in fucking force.
The
Well,
one pirate party?
They were a little
Pirate
late. They weren't in the first round, but then there's just one street next to me that's just full of the pirate.
I've
They were
not
the-
seen any of theirs yet.
They were the first out where I live. They were the first posters that went up.
Priorities, I guess.
I don't understand. I don't think there's anything about my area in particular that's just like.
Ciarán lives in the open seas, international waters.
I live in a
The
very large.
Gesundbrunnen Triangle.
I live in a very very large internet cafe. No, like I don't know what it is about my area that makes me think
There's
like
nothing
oh,
but drum and bass playing the
Everyone's walking around with
there's a bunch of
dreadlocks and trench
cyber
coats.
cops doing those raves under bridges. God, I wish that was my area. Great. But the fucking NDP or whatever the hell. those
Oh
posters brought
god,
up,
yeah, fuck. I
The-
thought that we were through of them
Apparently not.
until
The NPD, you mean like the neo-Nazis?
yeah,
I haven't seen their posters.
They're red put Summerplatz again.
Yeah, they're only in that area, and I went. My mom was in town this weekend, and so we went and did the whole thing, like Brandenburger Tor, and then you go down to
Yeah.
the Holocaust Memorial, and I was like, oh hey, like let's go see where Hitler fucking killed himself because that's cool because we should all piss on his grave. Well, he doesn't have a grave, but whatever.
You piss in front of your mom.
No. But so the NPD had posters all around there, like where in the little parking lot thing
Yeah.
that. Hitler
Yeah, for
killed
those
himself
who
in.
don't know, it's not marked at all.
No. Yeah.
The spot, I mean, he killed himself in his bunker, obviously, but the spot above where his bunker was, they did it on purpose so that there's no, it's not a place where people fucking right-wing psychos
But if you know,
leave anything.
you know.
But if you know, you know.
I guess it's kind of a case that they thought like maybe 50% of people who come to this spot are here to dunk on Hitler, which is good. But maybe another 50% of people who come to this spot are like, isn't this a tragedy? So let's try and get those fuckers to vote for us.
Yeah, and I took a picture of it actually, and I forgot what it said. And now they've tried to turn themselves into like a paramilitary organization.
Their big focus, from what like little German I understand, is security, like a strong and defended Europe.
It is like every single party. You guys have talked before about how the off day, the Eurosceptic parties have kind of dropped that. But it is funny how they all just try to shoehorn their message into something about Europe or Europe related. Like they can't talk about their own stuff. They have to talk about Europe, and they're all talking about the same thing. Like they're all just like, let's continue the like dominance of the Europe to continue our project
For different angles, for
from
sure.
from different angles, but they're all just like kind of like spinning the same shit.
For me, my joke has been like the SPD has no fucking answer because they've just been like Europe is the answer. That's
SPD
their, like
has
their
the
whole thing.
shittiest-
That
like-
is actually their.
That's
SPD
their slogan, yeah.
SPD's
Europa is the Antwort, yeah.
Yeah.
Hang on, what does NPD thing say?
Okay, the NPD posters say, "We're making protection zones."
That's what I saw. Yeah, protection zone.
And it has this very fash emblem that's like a shield
Yeah.
with the German colors on it with a Z through it, which is, I'm assuming, supposed to like
Zyklon B.
no, it's supposed to probably look like the SS logo or something because they obviously can't show it.
Yeah.
And then it says "Resist Now," and then it says and then it says NPD.
The
and-
posters I saw were using like the old German colors, like no yellow, which I always found really interesting.
Oh yeah, they have, it's just black, white, and red.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then on the little emblem they have the yellow going through that part.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Well, not fair enough. Fuck them. But
SPDs seem like just like the shittiest European like travel blog because it's just like a photo in front of the Eiffel Tower. Like Europe is the answer. Like
It's
people having a
always-
little picnic
It's
there. Like
fucking sad.
remember when you went
Always
there on your
very-
class trip and had a good time? That's what Europe is.
there's always this very Aryan woman like wearing
I was
a
like, yeah,
flag as a cape. Yeah.
Or the goddess of Europa telling you to fucking
I'm
go
gonna
and
fuck
vote.
this bull.
They
Goddess of
literally
Europa
have
telling
that.
you to submit your individuality to the greatness of Europe.
Yeah, literally,
Sacrifice
they have.
yourself for the honor and glory of our of our.
They have an artistic
fuckless
rendition
continent.
of. They have an artistic rendition of the goddess Europa, like pointing at you, kind of like this whole like Uncle
Oh, yeah,
Sam
that one you
thing.
saw. Yeah, fuck. Go
And it
on.
says
Yeah.
like we like vote for Europe or whatever. Or, like, are you registered to vote? And it's
Yeah.
just like, damn. Like I love
They're-
these like harboring like white nationalist sympathies.
They're trying to like turn Europa into like an Uncle Sam figure, basically. And a poster just pointing at you type of thing.
Just bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a good sign when the best posters are from the open Stalinist party. So when the posters that just say the clearly right things, like, yeah, that's always a good sign for a healthy political environment.
It's such a weird thing because the Marxist-Leninist party has the best posters. They always have. They've had the best posters since the entire time I've lived in Germany, and they are like the most like when you go to protests and stuff like that, they're like very friendly. And they're very nice, and they actually like I'll show these to you later, but Yulia and I signed up for getting free magazines from them, like 2 of them, like a sample thing, and it's like cool because they do a lot of stuff with workers and factories and stuff like that all throughout Europe, and they try to create international solidarity. But there's just a random page of just like how cool Stalin was.
As everybody knows, it's impossible to support workers and building worker powers in factories. Everyone knows you can't support workers without also supporting Stalin.
In the magazine, they just go through this entire thing of, weirdly enough, taking Lenin quotes, misquoting them to Stalin, and saying how Stalin fought against anti-Semitism. Which then was probably Stalin quoting Lenin and saying that it was himself, because Stalin was also notorious at just plagiarizing everyone.
That makes more sense to think about, the Soviet, studying history, hard, complicated. But if you just imagine Stalin as Michael Scott from The Office, easier to understand Russian history. He just attributes everything to himself.
That is exactly what he did.
Exactly.
I think all of dialectic. Is it with dialectics and materialism or dialectical
historical material? No.
I think
keep all of this in. This is brilliant.
I think it's dialectics and materialism is what Stalin's work is, and it's all.
There's one that's historical something. Historical.
It could be dialectical historical materialism or something. I don't fucking know. Whatever that work is, 100% plagiarized. Like, the entire thing was actually just taken from someone else, and Stalin just put his name on it.
Pimp.
Stalin invented Wikipedia.
That is, I've heard that from this magazine.
We're gonna have so many fucking tankies just get mad at us and be like, "How dare you?"
Any other parties? Yeah, the Späti, they're just a travel log. CDU just has like a big picture of like their representative and like
Hildegard something. I forgot her name.
Nothing else. Die Linke is fine. They're just.
They've had the same posters for I think the past
better jobs in Europe.
Better jobs, better wages. Who is the Greens have something about like the Greens have something like didn't they kind of adopt?
They did like
slogan?
A resist poster with all the posters like fuck Nazi the fuck Nazi.
Oh yeah, theirs was the most radical one that I've actually seen, which is kind of weird because the Greens are not.
I feel like it's performatively.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like most about the Greens.
Like they're trying to capitalize on this moment of them being surpassing SPD and stuff like that in the polls.
Which is not hard to do.
Yeah, because they've become the party that's supposedly meant to be the like shield against AFD. Which,
that's funny.
The Greens going up. I am your shield.
All right, Spanish elections though. The other election that's happening.
Who is their Stalinist party with their good signs?
All and or none of them. No, in Spain it's all about the Republic, like the failed Republic with the purple flag. It's a cool flag.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, shout out the Republican flag.
Yeah.
I like that purple line.
Shout out to the Republican flag. Follow them on Twitter.
Support their Patreon.
Yeah.
Wait, are you saying that like the Republicans in the U.S.?
No, it's just a nice flag.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, my understanding of the Spanish Civil War was the Republicans fucking fought against Franco, and Paul Ryan was in the trenches.
I forgot all of Paul Ryan's
Paul Ryan's
works of literature that he produced during the war.
The biggest thing though is when Paul Ryan betrayed Donald Trump in Catalonia. Dumb jokes. All right, actual Spain. So there's a snap election happening
today. We should clarify, when you listen to this, the election will be over, so our predictions are meaningless.
Yeah.
That being said, Ciarán, take it away.
Woo! Let's go for polls. All right, so our major contenders in Spanish politics are the socialists, not actually socialist.
Ooh.
The PP, which sounds funny, but that stands for People's Party, and that sounds communist, but they're not. They're the centre-right Rajoy Party, successor of Franco Party. The Ciudadanos, which I think I'm pronouncing correctly, the citizens, they're meant to be Spain's FDP, but because they started in Catalonia mainly as like anti-Catalonian independence, and Catalonian independence was largely a left-wing thing, they've been pushed further right, and they've become terrible and very, very almost further to the right. Like, the PP is losing votes to them. It's weird.
Well, what I was starting to say earlier with the FDP, the Ciudadanos is just FDP with the mask off. I mean, when you start a party that just revolves around classical liberal economics, much like the actual course of the history of liberal economics, you just will become fascist because that's what you got to do to keep up. Like,
yeah,
and so it's just accelerated a bit faster.
I always like, for me, like the Ireland doesn't really have like a center party. So like the closest we think we get is the Lib Dems in the UK, and they are not nearly as far right as FTP. So like the idea of the centre party going as far right as the FTP does, but you're right, Ciudadanos is just them with the mask off. They're a bit more open about the fact they've gone far right. Then we've got Podemos, which are cool, and then we've got Vox, which is the neo-Franquismo party,
Who are not cool.
led by Ezra Klein.
So the terrible things about this election are the fact that Vox is now like polling at 11% because the media gave them a shit ton of attention because they were doing well in the Andalusian.
Where have we seen this before?
Yeah, when I hear about an election where the far right's getting a lot of attention, and then the incumbent isn't campaigning on their own platform, but just them as better than the far right alternative, presenting themselves as a bulwark against the scary far right alternative, but not really offering their own vision. Never really heard that before.
Nope, never.
Ever.
It's a mystery.
It's really exciting.
Leave it up to Spain.
I wonder what'll happen.
Yeah.
And we can know then once we learn from this election.
Yeah.
Then
we'll
we
never
know
make the mistake ever
exactly.
again.
We'll learn for the future. So it's thank you, Spain.
Spain, a country notorious for never going fascist, not once.
Never repeating mistakes.
No, God no.
All my losses were lessons. Todo mis.
Nazex.
I'm just imagining just the country of Spain just being like a very motivational Instagram poster now.
I mean, yeah. So, yeah. Questions.
First question. Which Spanish party is promising to protect the minority in need of protection most in Spain? Spanish students who study abroad in Erasmus. We need protection that the other students will stop turning off their reggaeton music. The Spanish students need the right to play their reggaeton for at least like 3 hours during the house party.
Yeah. So the answer to that is none of the major parties, but about 1,200 local parties. Because like I said before off the mic, Spain has a lot of fuck-ton local control, which means predicting a fucking coalition is hard to do. Because, sure, the socialists are only polling at like 29%, and maybe they'll make a coalition with Podemos. They'll bring them up to like 42%. And then they will get like a grab bag of absolute whack job parties that believe in like independence for the Canary Islands or something like that. So, yeah, that's 12 parties.
Well, can you run through the potential blocks really quickly? Because I think that's a little confusing for people.
Yeah, okay. So people are talking about blocks in this election, which is basically just potential coalitions that could happen afterwards. So socialists are coming in with 29%. That's the most of any one party, but obviously 29% is not a majority make. So they'd have to work with Podemos, and that's pretty much the only one on the left that they can work with. There is like nothing else. There are some left-wing parties that like support Catalonian independence from Catalonia, but they're kind of like a third rail in Spanish politics.
Well, they didn't. Wasn't that the sticking point of the last that called the snap election because of the Catalonian parties?
Yeah, pretty much.
Because they were in the last government, right? With the
so
PSOE.
yeah, PSOE is the Socialist Party is in charge at the moment, and the reason they're in charge was because the PP was in charge, but there was a huge corruption scandal. there's a huge corruption scandal where it turns out pretty much everyone in the upper echelons of that party was a fucking criminal, and therefore, even though they have more seats currently, they're not in control due to like punitive measures. So, like, they lost a confidence vote. Yeah, but the reason the snap election has been called is because Vox, the PP, and the Cs, the citizens, Ciudadanos, were like, how dare you have a dialogue with the people who tried to declare independence in Catalonia. That's basically what the centre-left position has been. We don't support Catalonian independence, but we should talk to the people who like unilaterally declared it and try to reach some sort of solution. And then all these right-wing parties, and this was the moment that it became clear to everyone on the international stage that the Cs are right-wing, is because they were like marching in step with Vox to like on this issue, which is a dumb issue because like the Cs actually have no fucking answer to this, and the PP and Vox's answer is just to put everyone in jail, which will accomplish nothing. So yeah, this is the dumbest snap election, and it's possibly not like. Going back to the blocks thing, the right-wing bloc is the PP, Vox, and potentially the Cs, because it's become apparent in recent months that the Cs are right-wing. They're not the centre party they claim to be.
And together in the latest polls, what's their percentage? The three of those together.
Okay, so the Socialists and Podemos together is 42%. And then the PP, the Cs, and Vox are in around 46. So basically none of them can accomplish a...
It's a nail biter, folks. Tune in tonight.
None of them could...
Which way will Spain go?
But again, like I said, there's 1,000,001 parties that are all like going to get 1% of the vote because there's so much local control. Spain is a federation and everything but name. Like, there is literally a party that's for Canary independence, Coalición Canaria, and they're going to get 1% of the vote, and it depends. And then like there's the Basque parties, there's left-wing parties, like it's who can ever make a coalition, and the Socialists will have first stab at it though, because they'll get the most seats. So it depends on whether they're able to make like a majority that will work with them. But yeah, it's fucked. I'm so glad Vox is in this now.
Yeah, well, should we talk about Vox a little bit? Like, because I'm sure people...
I don't want to talk about those dumb videos.
At least from the mainstream news, I think a lot of people, when they first hear about foreign elections, the first thing, especially lately, that they hear about is the crazy new right-wing party.
Yeah.
And what they stand for. And so maybe we can go through that quickly and say what that means for the rest of Europe, if anything.
Right, give me a second here, because... Yeah, so they're doing that typical thing that happens when like one of these right-wing parties appear, which is to claim they're not right-wing.
A wild right-wing party's appeared.
Pretty much.
And instead of the four options, it's just all like, appease them, appease them, appease them, appease them.
Pretty much. Hang on. To get proper information about Vox, the political party, I have to go to the Wikipedia page and then change it to Spanish, and then you use Google Translate to change it back into English. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so they're doing that typical thing now because they're very much at the beginning of their like career, or like they were only founded. I think they were only founded in 2014. Yeah, founded in 2013, but didn't really get off the ground until 2014 when they got like some local seats near Santiago. So yeah. Now they're a thing. It sucks. They're doing quite well in the community of Madrid, which is the capital region. But yeah, they're doing that thing where they're claiming they're not far right. They're not right wing. They're not like fascist. They're
just stating facts, like Catalonians not white.
The big thing that happened was they did well in the Andalusian elections, which is why everyone's like paying attention to them. They kind of emerged by coming from the PP's like socially conservative side of things. They're very aggressively anti-feminist. Like that's one of their big sticking points. Like again, shithead bingo in European politics. They've used many of their leaders have used the phrase gender ideology to describe feminism, which is always good. But also something that like the center-right party in Spain, the PP, hasn't done and they've managed to capitalize on is Islamophobia. The center-right party in Spain never really did that. They had enough enemies within Spain, such as the Basque and Catalonian populations, to not really search for an external threat. But it's not to say that Islamophobia wasn't there in Spain. Obviously was, and Vox has managed to capitalize on that. They do a lot of culture war stuff, like the right for individual Spaniards to go hunting. They protect bullfighting.
Oh yeah,
Bullfighting. That's a big cultural war thing in Spain.
yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. They reject abortion.
How is this country an empire?
Well,
Like, I'm sorry. Like,
oh god.
why should I apologize about a country being imperialist? Like, they should apologize to everyone else.
Yeah.
I guess you need that like immense amount of dumb guy energy though to be a like super imperial country, right?
A little bit. There's a lot of arrogance that goes with that. Sure. Yeah.
True. Okay. Then it makes perfect sense.
It makes sense now.
Yeah. Why is this country no longer an empire then?
Well, I think they have an answer, which is all these abortions, and we haven't conquered Gibraltar yet.
Two points.
They've also been described as nationalist and neoliberal, but I think the most like striking thing is probably the description of them as neo-Franquismo, which is the one I keep going back to, because all these like cultural signifiers they go back to are like the culture of Andalusia, which Franco was super horny for, like siestas, bullfighting, flamenco guitar. That's not like a Spanish white thing, that's just Andalusia, and they're really into that as well. They also just like openly say Franco was cool, it was better under Franco, shit like that, which, like I said, the PP is the Franco successor party, but they don't really, like, again, it's like the Spanish equivalent of mask on, mask off kind of thing. They're not really allowed to say Franco was super cool. They just have to hint at it for their older voter base. But these guys are being like, Franco was cool.
So you said that they're a nationalist party and neoliberal?
Yeah.
So for Franco, that would make sense then, because a lot of economic reforms in Spain that like libertarians just jerk off on all the time came during his dictatorship. So that actually isn't as weird to...
No, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, given they weren't neoliberal reforms, but it's like you could look at like, I don't know, Chile was the example of that.
Yeah.
So you can be a nationalist piece of shit and be a neoliberal, because I know that like a lot of people think that like that they can't cross, and that's
Literally the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
yeah, that's really fucking stupid.
Weird things about the party is they want the Catholic Church to have more power in society.
Who doesn't? Finally, someone willing to stand up for the Catholic Church.
I want to say on
About
Orthodox
fucking
Easter, this
time.
Easter is bullshit.
Yeah, I agree with Ciarán.
Anyone
here.
seen celebrating Orthodox Easter should be shot immediately.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
And then probably the weirdest and probably the most fun thing about Vox is they've received a lot of €1 million donation from an organization called the National Council of Iranian Resistance.
Wait, what?
Yeah. An organization of Iranian exiles that are opposed to the current government of the Islamic Republic of Iran have decided this is their champion. Vox, the neo-Franquismo party of Spain.
Okay. Do they all live in Spain?
No.
Oh. Okay. Why did I even ask such a stupid question?
I mean, I feel like it's an international thing. Yeah. Their headquarters are in France.
Okay. I'm just thinking, what group of people then were kicked out of Iran, except for the people who were part of the ruling class?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's true. But there's a similar group in the U.S. I don't.
Yeah, there is, isn't there?
Yeah, and they always petition to get like the Shah's son to speak on campus and shit like that. It's fucking stupid.
He's just literally like Charlie Kirk. And they're like, get him to speak.
Turning point Iran.
According to El País, the voter turnout is up 9.5 points since 2016.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't surprise me. Like, this
and
is
it's up 17.8% in Catalonia.
Yeah, so there's been shit going down in Catalonia that means this election is kind of important. The rise of Vox is probably mobilizing both people who support Vox and the people who are like never Vox kind of people, which is fine.
I'm a never Vox kind of guy. I never will watch those fucking videos.
I prefer Mother Jones.
I'm just imagining if Ezra Klein had this much fucking power in the U.S.
Oh, god damn it. Yeah.
Ezra Klein absolutely would take money from a random Iranian expat
of course he would.
organization. Yeah.
Does he not?
Probably has.
Actually, there's a 20% chance that this group just confused Vox Spain with Vox in the U.S. because all of the dumb blogs and online political magazines in the U.S. just have like shady ass dark money funding them.
Well, and I mean, Vox is like
Vox is just Bill Gates just dumping money into their throwing money, shoving it down their open gullet, and then.
But I mean, Vox always has videos about regime change. I think everyone seems to forget that.
Yeah.
That their take on foreign policy is like extremely conservative, but they just try to break it down in a cool, fancy video for you.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, cool. I watched Ezra Klein or that other guy tell me something.
Well, when they explain it to you, then it's self-evident true. They're not reporting. They're explaining why the regime change needs to happen.
Yeah, so that's the Spanish elections. I can imagine turnout's going to be up, but also it depends what they're comparing the last turnout figures for, because the last election in Spain was like the fourth one in a year.
I'm sure it's whatever makes they're comparing it to the lowest numbers popular to pop off the page, you know.
But like after having 4 elections in a row,
oh, actually,
turnout
it said
is the fourth one
2016, so never mind.
Yeah, 2016 was a year of elections in Spain. They just had the same election over and over again because it always turned out that the PP got the most seats, but they could never form a coalition.
You know, you guys, sorry, this is just really making me sound like that the only solution is just a complete and absolute dictatorship in what I want.
Of Ezra Klein.
No, not of Ezra Klein. Like, I would... voting 4 times in a year.
Yeah.
That sounds fucking horrible.
Yeah.
That's maybe people just want Franco back because then they don't have to ever vote again.
Right? Like, I mean, also that was the year Brexit happened, which was like... It was so funny being like, oh, Brexit's happened. What's happening? What does Spain think? Who the fuck knows? All the expats and the Gibraltar situation, that's going to be a big deal for Spain. I guess. Sure. I don't know. I did not watch this, so I'll act as the audience.
You didn't watch any of it.
I've seen the Where Are the Marxists highlight, and I've also seen the like bit where Peterson talks about violent revolution and the crowd cheers. You know, the bloopers.
Yeah. I think that's it. I think you saw the whole entire video then. I think you saved yourself 3 hours.
Right? Comedy was 3 fucking hours.
2 titans going at it. I gotta say, like, we watched it live and I fell asleep. I went to bed. I couldn't handle it.
Raw energy.
Yeah, it was because the first hour and a half is just them going back and forth, giving their I don't know, like the very like academic sense of a debate. That first you give your introduction, you know, thing, and then you like talk one-on-one with each other. And I couldn't follow what either one of them were saying. One, because Jordan Peterson, it was very clear that he only read the first like 3 sentences of the Communist Manifesto, and that is the only amount of Marx that he ever read, and then just kept quoting this over and over and over and over and over again.
God grant me the confidence of a man who's been asking for this debate for years, and then just reads the first 3 pages and then goes up and is like, hey, I got it.
Literally,
I'm going to nail this.
But that's... Okay, so that's probably... From what I've heard just from the conversations and those 2 clips, is that this whole debate served as a very good moment to really prove for anyone who's looking for proof, who hasn't seen it already, that Peterson is a fucking con artist.
Yeah.
Because like his whole shtick has been like complaining about the neo-Marxists, and he's never read like a word of fucking Marx up until like 5 minutes.
The fact that he uses the word neo-Marxist shows that he's never read Marx.
Yeah, exactly. But like for other, like, you have to remember there are people out there who engage with Peterson's work who haven't also read Marx, but they trust that he has, or that he has an
You
understanding.
mean everyone who engages with Peterson, like
Yeah.
what is it, Dave Rubin, Ben Shapiro,
Yes.
Joe Rogan,
Yeah.
every fucking dipshit on the right who is just dumb.
Yeah.
Like it's like I think it's always so funny because they always try to go on the fact of like, oh yeah, like we've read this for you because it's really difficult. Marx is really easy. Like Marx was actually writing for the workers of his time.
Well, especially the Communist Manifesto,
It's
because
the easiest fucking thing in the world to
it's
read.
a pamphlet. It's 20
Yeah.
pages, like, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the extended version is like 50 or something like that.
Yeah.
Like it's fucking stupid. And you know, Peterson going through and be like, "Oh, well, it's quite complicated. I don't really know what Marx is saying here." It's like, I mean, given I haven't read, you know, volumes and volumes and volumes like fucking Zizek has, like I want to do other things.
Yeah.
But every time that I've come in contact with Marx is incredibly easy, whether it be in English or in German. And I find it just like, you just don't want to read this. You want to just like you take them the things of the 20th century, which arguably don't fall in the tradition of, given are Marxists. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not going to say that then that, you know, the Soviet Union or the, you know, whatever projects of socialism that then happened under the name of Marxism weren't Marxist, because they are under that banner. There is a lot of thought, especially in like Leninism, that does transfer into that. But just simply on the work of Marx, like, you don't know what you're fucking talking about.
No. But, I mean, you have to recognize, I think, that Peterson never once before that debate said that he hadn't read it. Like, that he hadn't read this stuff. Like, we actually got to this moment where he admitted that he hadn't read Marx. That the only thing he did read was, even if we take him at face value, he read the Communist Manifesto. But that doesn't really contain theory. That was a manifesto about like what the communists intended to do. That's not like reading Das Kapital or...
Which mentions nothing about socialist revolution.
Yeah.
Which most of Marx's stuff doesn't mention any of that. It mentions just like the realities of political economy in the time of Marx, or just the history of what was going on. And the thing that I always thought was so annoying of Peterson is that he was talking about like, well, you see this, like, life can't be broken down into the simplicities of the classes of the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. And then Zizek, I think, if I'm not mistaken, came back and was like, well, if you see in the 18th Brumaire, Marx acknowledges that. He wonders why are these, you know, the peasantry of France aligning themselves with someone who's claiming to be the new emperor of France. Like, obviously, class interests weren't being, you know, acknowledged. It was in the safety net of then recreating something that then, like, you know, would bring them back to glory. You know, I think that Matt on Chapo always brings up the good thing of comparing the 18th Brumaire with Trump as one of the best ways of describing that mentality, because it proves that then that there is something beyond that of class, and how class can be manipulated to serving then that of the ruling class. And Marx acknowledges that in fucking 1851. Yeah. You know? And also the 18th Brumaire, you can read that snippet, you know, in 20 fucking minutes. You know, the whole end of the 18th Brumaire is just a summary of everything that Marx just wrote in like 3 pages. You know? But yeah, what you gonna do? Zizek really didn't have to do much to dunk on him, really.
No, but I was genuinely surprised that Peterson was actually going to give away that much of his game. Like, that he wouldn't read anything, or that he would claim that he hadn't read. That just seems... Like, I genuinely thought he knew what he was doing in terms of the grift. But now I'm thinking he doesn't.
Oh, I thought that he was so arrogant that he was convinced he just didn't have to.
Yeah, that's possible. I mean, maybe like Peterson earlier in his grifting career would have read the material. Maybe now it's genuinely drank his own Kool-Aid.
Because he makes too much money doing this than it does being compared to being an academic. That is, I mean...
But like, I feel like there is a career of being this kind of right-wing grifter where they like start and they're like maybe making an effort of like being the grifter and trying to prove themselves, but now he's like so firm in his position, so stable in his position that he thought he could just walk it in and it would be fine.
Yeah, the thing I find that's really interesting about Peterson, more so than like all the other people on the right, at least in the United States, this isn't a thing for Canada or Europe or whatnot, and maybe this hasn't come because Peterson is Canadian, but he's very much aligned himself with the pro-Trump YouTube, Twitter intelligentsia, whatever the fuck you want to call them.
Yeah, the intellectual dark web.
Yeah. Like the Ben Shapiro's and the, I don't know who else.
Dave
Rubin. And like, they've all kind of more or less come out that they're like in favor of Trump. They just may have like, they still have like some,
qualms
with him, but nonetheless, they're still like Ben Shapiro's 99.9% pro-Trump.
Yes.
And the thing I find so interesting with Peterson is that he's never actually come out with an opinion about that,
Yeah.
which is like kind of, at least for probably some, dumb younger Americans, they can then look at someone like a Jordan Peterson and be like, oh yeah, you see, like he isn't, right wing. He isn't, obviously he's not left wing.
Yeah.
He always then, does the
he's a free thinker. He's genuine. Yeah.
He does the typical bullshit thing of like, I'm a classical liberal, and that whole nonsensical bullshit with all the fake analysis stuff behind it as well. But I always found that kind of surprising about how well he was able to navigate this field with one that was more or less, after 2016, was like, you have to be pro-Trump or not.
Yeah.
And he's been one of the very few ones who's been,
staying in the middle there and straddling that line.
Yeah, being an insane right-wing idiot while not being,
yeah. That is interesting, actually, and you're 100% correct.
And I think that's how he gets like a lot of young guys into it who then maybe not, I mean, aside from the fact of his self-help image, but that they can also look at that and see that then someone who isn't like, preaching about how great Trump is, like Ben Shapiro tried to do, and then had to pretty much give that entire thing up.
The other thing that's interesting about like Peterson,
not that Ben Shapiro was giving a self-help thing, but it's whole politics thing or whatever.
The interesting thing about Peterson though, as well, is with like his fans, which at the same time, maybe this is kind of related, but I also feel like their fans are like, they're not beyond saving to a certain extent. They're not beyond getting out of that hole.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like those other people you've mentioned, they're far more entrenched. They're harder to pull out of that. Like, you're listening to some absolute fucking garbage.
Yeah. Hence why I think that Zizek was a good person actually to come on and do this, because Zizek, for the left, is not the best person to listen to because he is so problematic. And I think that then what a lot of people who listen to these right-wing thinkers like is that how, quote-unquote politically incorrect they are, or just how openly racist they are. Let's just say it that way.
Yeah.
And Zizek, as unfortunate of his as unfortunate some of the shit that comes out of his mouth is, and how he can be sometimes transphobic or whatever, which people rightfully do call him out on, and people do challenge it. And I think he's actually changed his position on some of these things. At least I think, I will give Zizek credit, to a degree.
Yeah, well, it was kind of what we were talking about before. Like, if he goes through his argument, it's an extremely sound argument that
but then he just has to make these bad
that a
jokes.
trans identity is not a individual siloed off identity under liberal capitalism. It should be a universal it's a reflection of a universal struggle against the sort of regime of sexuality. That's his argumentation. And then when he just wants to make a joke, he just wows out and says something problematic.
He has a hot
these people
gamer
said I
moment.
could say the N-word. I know that's changing the topic, but
no, but it's exactly that. Is that Zizek has these fucking heated gamer moments that then I think a lot of people then who are influenced by this intellectual dark web can look at Zizek and be like, oh, because be fair, Zizek's understanding of the world as a Marxist, or what is he? He doesn't call himself a Marxist. He calls himself a Hegelian, as you said during the debate. But still, his ability to break down things about how this all is pretty much a crisis of capitalism is good, and then unfortunately mixed with bad jokes and little hints of racism.
Well, one thing I was thinking about what exactly. Okay, so two things. The first is that a lot of people, when you press them on why they, usually the same kind of people who watch Joe Rogan, maybe they'll also read Jordan Peterson's book or know someone who did, and they say, yeah, it really helped me and made made me clean my room. But I think what usually one thing they fall back on is like, okay, forget about his politics. Often they say he doesn't talk about politics. It's beyond that. But then if you get further, they'll say
he does fucking PragerU videos. Like his politics are quite out there.
One thing they'll fall back on is that he's just a smart guy and he says smart things. And I think that's like, the kind of tangents he goes on, like analyzing Frozen and stuff, because that's what people are all about. Like, oh, I didn't think of it that way or something like that. And it's like, Zizek is the king of that. Like, it's just, he cannot stop going on tangents. And so I do think, in general, I feel like Zizek's tactic in the whole debate was just like an intervention, like speaking directly to the little lobster boys watching and not even talking to Peterson. And if they just see him go like, oh, that's interesting, like he seems funny and he seems smart, then that's enough for some people.
Yeah. Given I don't want these people to stop at Slavoj Zizek. Like, there is a wealth of leftist thought that should challenge Zizek, and I still accept Zizek as part of the left. I'm not. For all the dumb stuff that Zizek does and says and whatever, I do genuinely think that one, he wants the left to succeed.
Yeah.
He says stupid shit. Mm-hmm. From what I've heard, he is like a genuinely nice person and stuff like that. For like people who've worked at his for him as a assistant or student assistant or whatever and stuff like that. Like he actually like has respect for normal people and stuff like that, which for a lot of people in academia is definitely not the case. And he's just kind of like your weird old grandpa who then also somehow like happens to be a Marxist, which is like not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to be like as fucking woke as some 20-something-year-old kid who goes to university today.
Going back to Peterson, when I think back to like when he blew up, like the book was kind of the peak of it, but he was, before that he was like getting more and more popular. And I think his like core fan base were the videos and his way of analysis and whatever the world and structures and wow, there's different way you can look at the world. It's not just as it seems, it's deeper than that. And maybe pop psychology is already a fertile ground for this kind of right. But like the already existing pop psychology in the atmosphere makes this kind of Jungian analysis. There's fertile ground for the Jungian analysis. For just some people watching YouTube and who want to think they're smart.
Me.
But if you think like what really like blew him up, especially among the right, were a series of interviews he did with like women journalists and like owned them.
The Channel 4 one.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to that's the real. It's not like there's a coherent argument for capitalism because but there's an argument for within his argument. There's a kernel of hierarchy and domination and why that's good and justified. And then when he goes out and like owns people in debate, then that's sort of what like really like trigger like really fires up some of the like real like in some parts of like the brain of some of his viewers who get really excited. And it's not like they agree with his whole structure. It's not even that they can be won over to like a leftist viewpoint so easily. He's just, here's a smart guy owning women in the way I want to, and the only people I see really doing it are the crazy fascists on YouTube, but here's a smart professor doing it, so let's pull him into the camp. Like, and that's, I think it might be just at that level for some people.
I think also, like, to be fair with whenever any of these right-wing people go on to a typically liberal, they're typically just interviewed by liberals, whether it be a news station or a YouTube channel or whatever it is. They always ask the worst questions. I don't know what it is about just like identity liberalism that has made people just unable to challenge people in a way that then would actually like, not give them the opportunity to just dunk on them. Because that Channel 4 interview with Jordan Peterson, just the questions are just like unbelievably just open for be like, oh yeah, so what, do you think that you're a racist? Do you think that you're a sexist? Just like shit fucking questions of like, well, no, of course I don't. You know, how are you
It's
gonna
everyone's dream that they could own someone in just the perfect way that they would lob it up for them in the right over the plate.
There was a thing I saw with what's his name with the one eye patch. Of course he has one eye patch.
Dan Crenshaw.
Dan Crenshaw, the fucking pussy former Navy SEAL guy.
The tweeting congressman.
Yeah. And he was at ASU the other day, and like the only way that then like people. TP USA was hosting him or something like that.
Yeah.
And the only way that then like, okay, given like you can like the only way that people know how to address him is just in this dumb call out culture. There's like, Dan Crenshaw, sir, you're a Nazi. And he's like, no, I'm not. And I think that then you could have addressed the question about then like, okay, how do you feel about then, supporting an organization that then has been infiltrated multiple times by white nationalist organizations that has been quite open about it.
Yeah.
That has had
also, how do you feel about Kristallnacht?
Yeah, how do you? But I mean, like, you could go like even the question about then like about white nationalism in the United States with TPUSA.
Yeah.
Like the real question I always think to ask is like, well, what is your like? They've been infiltrated so many times by white nationalist groups, and they're very much aware of it. And there's been discords that have been
leaked
and stuff like that.
Very good for that.
Yeah, and how like known members of like Identity Europa and stuff like that will get their way into TPUSA and try to then change the discourse.
Trying to take over the Discord.
Yeah, no, try to change the discourse within TPUSA to be openly white nationalist. That is a legitimate question to ask that of course TPUSA can't answer as easily like, well, we're not a Nazi group. And just saying like, oh, you're Nazis. There are ways of asking these things in this way than just like addressing him instead of just being like, you're a Nazi because you did this. And that does, to be very fair, like that does just turn a lot of people off. I know that then we like to imagine ourselves a lot of the time being like these like crusaders against, the right and whatnot. But when you're going and yelling on a fucking campus, like a lot of people do, at least in the United States, here it's much different, but not also in a great way either.
Here everyone's already Nazis. So
yeah. But the thing is that then Peterson's, like you said, like the ability of then like this academic to come on and to address then these very poorly asked questions, or just like to kind of show that then the right can be intellectual, even though he's not, as we clearly saw in the debate. Like that is something that the left really fucking needs to work on, because you're not gonna like you're not gonna dismantle TPUSA or dismantle Jordan Peterson by calling him a racist or a sexist or a Nazi. We need to fucking realize that, like, sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Because that's a really shitty form of direct action. If you even think that's direct action, that's just childish.
So, like, particularly with the Channel 4 debate, though, that's very interesting, which is there's this, like, form of liberal interview that happens in the news that won't work for an internet celebrity figure like Jordan Peterson or any internet celebrity figure, which is talk to them, get them to speak as much as possible, and then the way that's classically worked in the UK and still works for people who aren't famous online and their only like public interaction is with the press is like that interviewer will just get them to say as much as possible, and then it is a job for or at least or even just the other journalists in your institution to like comb through that, take out all the problematic shit, spin that into like terrifying headlines. This has been done for like politicians for years in the UK, and the thing about that doesn't work anymore, or at least definitely doesn't work for an internet celebrity figure, is no one's going to engage with that media. When the interview gets uploaded to YouTube, all people are going to watch is the interview, and if you're not pushing back in that interview in any decent way, then they're not going to engage with the tangential media that happens afterwards. They're not going to engage with also it just in general in the UK context, it doesn't work with anyone on the right, because the UK media is very much right-wing controlled, and they're just going to be like, this leftist said something about sending everyone from Manchester into a Labour camp, and then, hey, did everyone see Sargon of Akkad last night? He sure looked dapper. That'd be the same fucking newspaper.
Well, this is a comment that he didn't care about the Holocaust or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it mightn't be, but I believe it.
No, literally. He said,
literally that.
It was literally that.
Okay, cool. I have not engaged with his UKIP candidacy campaign as much as I should.
Yeah, I mean,
He's been banned from Twitter, and now UKIP is having
reach for the stars. Because if you miss
the European Parliament, the European Parliament is not the stars.
No.
Going back to what you said, Nick, like, I think that one question you have to ask yourself is, like, when you rightfully point out, I don't want to even say that it's right or wrong, but someone like Dan Crenshaw, who clearly could, like,
he's a white nationalist.
Yeah, exactly. Who could clearly become a fascist. When you point that out, what do you expect? Like, I think what people think is everyone will finally see, yeah, you're right, and stop listening.
Yeah.
But what will happen, I mean, as conditions develop, what will happen is he'll just be like, yeah, so what? You know?
Oh, yeah, Dan Crenshaw will be one of the first people in Congress if a mask-off moment comes.
Yeah.
Because for most, like, even with as insane as the Trump presidency is, it still is very much, I think, on a mask-on moment of that, this bullshit American ideal that everyone can be a part of this, even though we have, horrible draconian immigration policy, continuing the war in Yemen, so on, so forth. But it's not really anything out of the norm of U.S. politics in general that we've been seeing. It's just like a little bit more to the right, But there hasn't been like an actual like white nationalist push, I think, within. Given you have Steve King, who is a white nationalist. Okay, I take that back. You have one person who is a full-blown white nationalist, and who I think has like pretty much admitted it too. Yeah. But aside from that, like, I mean, look, fuck, Joe Biden's running for president. Come on. If anyone is like not more qualified historically to be a white nationalist, it's fucking Joe Biden.
Yeah. I think the only thing that possibly calling out someone like that as a fascist, like just saying that, just shouting that at them on Twitter, the only thing that does is it can help some people feel less alone and less like they're the crazy one. Because if you're the only person in your community, which is very possible in the United States, to be like, this Crenshaw guy is a bit of a fascist, and no one is agreeing with you.
Crenshaw only won because his district got so gerrymandered that it's around like he's in
the shape
Texas.
of his eye patch.
Literally, it's just like a crescent moon around a former district in Texas. He's only there because of a brand new gerrymandered district.
But the thing is, like, if you're the only person in your community, wherever that is, saying that Crenshaw is a fascist, and everyone around you is going like, "Nah, you're crazy," and then you see this online, I guess it's nice to feel less alone, but that's not really the intended effect of anyone who's like commenting this. That's like an auxiliary effect, and it's one that's very easily controlled by the algorithm, because the top reply to like any viral tweet is very much decided on your profile and who you follow and who you don't. So yeah, I mean, that's the only silver lining I can think of.
I agree. And I think that you can get into, well, then how did that actually get to, how do you actually communicate with the people who want to hear that? And we do also need to distinguish between going to TPUSA and yelling at Dan Crenshaw versus...
which is just stupid.
The woman, like when Chelsea Clinton tried to come to this one
That's
group,
different.
Exactly, that's different. I do want to clarify. The whole reason I'm bringing up this line of thought is because there was, by the time you listen, I'm sure you'll know that there was another shooting yesterday in the U.S. By another just 4chan psycho, who just wants to kill all the Jews.
8chan.
Sorry, 8chan.
Distinction is meaningless.
Yeah. But he also did this, he also shouted out PewDiePie in the same way. And I'm no like right-wing scholar, so I don't know. I'm sure if you just looked at the chat rooms, you could figure out why they're so obsessed with this meme. But I think part of it is that they want to, so I think the way people usually argue it is that like, it's like the like okay hand sign. It's like, oh, it's nothing wrong with it. It's something that they...
PewDiePie is just a YouTube channel.
It's just a YouTube channel. But I think it's more than that, because he is this little proto-Nazi teenager.
ContraPoints has the best video on this about explaining like how do you then define if like how can you then define if someone's a fascist or not, because of the way that they use all these like very, purposely these
symbols that are meant to infiltrate.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think that what these little psycho, and this is the teenager, the kid was 19 or whatever, I think they want to quote unquote red pill PewDiePie. They see, I see you become a Nazi like me. And so when you're yelling at Dan Crenshaw to be a Nazi, isn't that kind of the same tactic? Like if you're doing the same tactic as the murderous, like right wing, is that who is that going to benefit? You know what I mean?
I mean, Dan Crenshaw probably already is a Nazi. So
Well, that's what I mean. So is PewDiePie.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, he's just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, if they think
I mean,
that they
to be
can
fair,
convince PewDiePie I mean, they're obsessed with red pilling, right? So I think that's what it goes down to.
And I
If
think
they think they can red pill PewDiePie, then you can red pill Dan Crenshaw if you yell at him and call him a Nazi enough. That's kind of what they're getting at with this whole. Everyone points out how dumb the logic is. You made me right wing by criticizing me. What that really
They were
means
already
is
right-wing to
I was
begin
already
with,
right
yeah.
wing. And if you want to, if you're an accelerationist, go around and you call everyone a Nazi because you'll make them more right wing. But I don't think that's. Go ahead and do it. It's not like it's bad. It's good. It's just.
I think for the people,
It's a
who are
right
then-
wing. It's what the right wing clearly. It's what their tactic is now.
I think for the people, like I have a like I don't know. I think what you're the thing with yelling at Dan Crenshaw is not going to make him any more or less of a Nazi than he already is, or a white supremacist, whatever fucking word that you want to insert, fascist. You know what? And the reality of American history is that the U.S. has always been pretty historically fascist to begin with. They're pretty cool with fascism. It's just always been called different things. So using the rhetoric of that, then like you're a fascist. Americans can always give you that bullshit thing about like, no, like we fought against them, but in reality, the policies of the U.S. have been just as oppressive. Maybe not as like, okay, Nazi Germany, but you know, in Franco is Spain and shit like that. I mean, they're pretty like there's some eras in the 60s of the United States into the 80s of just the policing of, you know, communities of color that are just as destructive as a full-blown fascist dictatorship. You know, where I mean, experimentation on minorities and shit like that. Like it's a disgusting, you know, neo-colonial history that's been propped up by white supremacy. You can't really deny it at this point either. So yeah, like there's that's already instilled, like kind of in the American psyche. And if calling them a Nazi more or less is going to push them over that, yeah, no, you're right. That's not going to do it. However, I do think that then for, yeah, like the dumb guy, you know, young, particularly college people who like look at the, you know, the campus crisis, you know, the thing that TPUSA banks on. I do think that there is some level that, possibly because, and given we don't live in the U.S. I don't spend all too much time there. I think that the left has a really bad dialogue with these people. So when they see the campus crisis thing happening, especially if they're young, you know, heterosexual white males, you know, and they feel then quote unquote victimized, and they can find, you know, solace in a group like TPUSA, I do think that's actually a problem. And I do think that then the this dumb, weird left call-out culture thing, and that is very American, is could potentially make these people white supremacists. I'm not saying that the left is making them that, but I'm saying that the left is very not open to all types of people like they pretend to be.
Yeah.
You know, and there's been, I don't know, like there's it is, I think, more so a problem within liberalism itself rather than actually, like, you know, socialism, because Marxism has answers to these questions that, you know, liberalism doesn't. You know, how do you explain then the sense of disenfranchisement of just workers in general, regardless of race? Oh, you know, class comes into that. You know, why is it that then there's, you know, poverty is then done on, you know, like the dumbest fucking white nationalist argument's always like, you know, well, there are poor white people who are always, you know, just shat on by the government. Yeah, you're right. Like there definitely is, especially in like rural areas in Kentucky or whatever that have no access to healthcare.
Yeah.
That can be explained on a class level.
Well, it's the liberal identity politics is identity politics without the analysis of class.
Yeah, and you need that. And I really I really wish that there was, I mean, given it's good that there's now campus DSA movements and stuff like that, but for a while there wasn't. You know, DSA was a thing that pretty much came out of, I mean, given they've existed for 30 years or whatever, or 40 years, with a horrible history, mind you, up until recently with now Sanders energizing this idea then of, you know, what is done. And even then, DSA is a complex organization that they don't agree about things, but they still at least open a dialogue on, like, you know, class-based things. So I don't know, but there is, like, at least in my opinion, of kind of seeing this and having friends of mine who were so turned off by this type of campus thing or whatever, then actually becoming right wing, not maybe directly because of that, but also because too, like the YouTube algorithms and the Twitter algorithms, it pushes you to become a white supremacist, you know.
Yeah.
And I do think so more than actually pushing you toward a left-wing argument.
Oh, for sure.
Because there is fantastic left-wing content on YouTube, you know, good left-wing Twitter and stuff like that.
Left-wing Twitter is the best Twitter.
Yeah.
Fucking.
You know, good left-wing, you know, podcast literature, all that kind of stuff. That's
Like
very,
this one.
Like this one. That's very accessible.
We're the best left-wing literature.
I think so. You know, that's very accessible. That doesn't then just like sit there and like berate you, like in the sense of like, you know, like the Bernie Sanders thing, like, look at this old white man wanting to become president. This, like, you know, completely missing the, you know, the general thing of what he stands for, you know, and how this is so deeply ingrained with like the liberal identity movement in the U.S. You know, that feminism is buying a fucking T-shirt that says girl power on it or something like that. Like it's the fucking early 90s again or something.
Thanks for listening to this week's Corner Späti. If you like the podcast, subscribe, rate us on iTunes, because we need that fucking shit. Thanks to Melty Brains for the use of our theme song, New Dawn. It's a banger. It's on Spotify and other places you find music. We're on all the places you find podcasts. And we'd like to thank our other sponsors this week, Huawei and Chinese socialism with Xi Jinping characteristics.
And the Greek Orthodox Church.
And the Greek Orthodox Church.
Happy Easter.
Happy, correct Easter.
Happy Orthodox Easter.